co-creator of some of the most iconic comic book characters in comic book history, Mr. Stan Lee.
Stan the man. Woo!
One of the original founders of Image Comics and world-renowned artist, Mr. Todd Mcfarlane. And the writer of Blood Red Dragon, Mr. John Goff. Alright guys, ready to do this?
Is that on? Before we get started, Joe forgot to pull the tab. There's a tab. You guys have all done sound, because if you don't have the tab in there, then people can burn the battery. So we've got one here. I'm going to give it to Yoshiki. He will pull the tab and play his music for you.
There we go.
Woo!
If it's too loud for you, let us know.
Something like that.
I've got to sit near Todd because I don't hear that well, and he'll repeat to me everything that's said. And when I don't want to hear, I'll just say, I couldn't hear it.
I translate in Canadian for him.
Well, let's kick this off with Stan. How did you first meet Yoshiki?
How did I first meet Yoshiki? Even before I answer that, I got to say, I hate these two men. I'll probably hate him when I get to know him better. I hate people who are more talented than I am. This guy writes and draws like a house on fire, and he also has one of the great toy companies of all time. Me, I'm on panels. This guy, when you saw the movie, or the whatever that was on film, this is the most popular guy in all of Asia, soon to be in America. He plays 1 million instruments. He writes, he plays, he performs, and he's, I hate him. I'm so jealous of him, and I've got to be here, and I've got to make nice to everybody, and it's not going to be easy, and I just wanted to let you know.
That's the biggest compliment I've ever got.
So they want to know, how did you guys meet for the first time?
Oh, we met. Some young lady introduced us. There's always a female involved. It was at a party. Also, Yoshiki is one of the great charitable people of all time. He was having a party, a big one, an expensive one, and all the proceeds were to go to a charity. So, oh, that's who I am. I'm Stan Lee.
Oh God, Stan's the man.
And at the thing, we met, and we decided we ought to work together because I will exploit anybody that I find that can do me some good. We decided to do, was it a music video, right?
Yes.
And he gave me a role in the, you know how I sometimes get cameos?
Yeah.
Well, he gave me a little cameo, but it's bigger than a little one, and I play the devil, which is great typecasting. You'll be able to see it when it comes out. It's not a feature film, which it should have been, you know, so I could add it.
And if you rearrange the letters of Satan, you can spell Stan.
See, he always does that. He goes for the big laugh. I warm you up, then he comes in for the... Anyway, that's how I met him. He's one of the great guys that I've ever met. He's talented. He's a great human being. He's fun to be with. He doesn't understand most of what I say, so I can say anything else. And I love the guy.
Oh my God. So who was it that came up with the idea of the music superhero for the comic book?
Who came up with the idea of a superhero?
The music superhero that is featured in the comic book.
I think the three of us did together, didn't we?
We were all in the bathtub that day.
We came up with the idea and we said there's only one person who could do it. But that guy was busy. We got
And of course, I said yes, because I knew I was the second choice. So, now, my understanding, and Yoshiki can speak to it, I got in a little bit later. That the concept was given to me. You guys had talked about it in advance, so the question then became, from where I jumped in, how do we now take the idea that these two good men came up with and turn it into a comic book that Yoshiki could sell back to his fans? So, Yoshiki, you want to tell them how you guys came up with the idea?
Yes, so we are having a dinner at my party. Then I asked Stan, what do you do? He said, I make superhero. I said, really? Can you make me superhero? Then he said, can you compose some kind of music? I said, deal.
That's the nice way of putting it. What really happened was, he said, well, what can you do for me? And I said, would you like to be a superhero? He said, okay. And I said, only if you give me a bigger cameo. And he said, okay. So that's why we did it.
I
We came up with this idea, and and this is hard for me to say. I don't say this often about other people, but he had more to do with the idea than I did. You wanted the dragon, you wanted kind of to make him the kind of character he... All I did was follow his instructions. So if it's great, I followed his instructions magnificently. If it isn't great, hey, they were his instructions.
Regarding a superhero, you know, I wanted to beat Spider-Man. I wanted to beat Batman.
No, I can hear him somehow into the mic. It comes out muffled. If he just looked at me and talked, I'd hear him. This helps you people, but I can't hear what they say when they talk into the dumb mic. What did he say?
He said,
No, you're talking into the mic.
he said he hates you too.
And what about the guy who wrote the book? Let's talk to him.
Well, let's talk about it. So here's how sort of a project comes to be. You got Yoshiki is actually the origin because he's the guy that's going to be in the book. He's going to look for somebody to help sort of flesh out an idea, so he gets Stan.
That I can take the credit for.
Right. He then goes, now we got to get some art on it. That then comes over to my studio, and I have to put a book together. So it was fairly easy for me to find a writer that could flesh out the ideas that Yoshiki and Stan came up with. John Goff over here currently helps me on the Spawn comic book. He helps with the writing and the plot on it, so I already had somebody that I could trust in terms of their sensibility. And from there, he just got the idea, and John can talk a little bit about how he expanded it up.
So what I was given was the treatment that Stan and Yoshiki had put together, and then it kind of went through Todd and his people. And we just kind of fleshed out this 2-page treatment of the story and the origins of the characters and turned it into this 4-issue miniseries and adding kind of different depths to the villains and increasing like the threat of this traditional kind of superhero story, but adding in the musical elements and kind of trying to do some different things. So there'll be some twists and turns throughout the story that will kind of hit new and different beats that were all kind of fleshed out in that original treatment that Stan and Yoshiki put together.
I heard the word flesh out. The rest of it you'll tell me. That's all right, I'm kidding.
He said he copies everything you do.
And take the credit.
Yeah.
So Yoshiki, as an artist, what do you hope to express through this comic as opposed to your work as a musician? What do you hope to get out of doing the comic book instead of that you couldn't do with music? It's a hard question, I understand.
I don't know.
Can I answer? I'll answer that. Yoshiki decided to do a comic book because he had met me and I knew Todd, and he felt, I'm not going to let these two guys go to waste. I'll take advantage of them, right?
Well, I mean, let's just, again, get serious for a bit here. That we've all been to enough concerts in our life that we know that when we go, we're going to get to see him perform, and we've seen it before. Part of what we have to do is, what can you leave them once the concert's over? So, besides the experience of the concert, sometimes it's nice to go, and again, you've seen people buy posters and buy t-shirts and stuff like that, but we were just looking, you were looking for something, I assume, a little bit different to give to your fans that wasn't the same thing that people were used to at a concert, too.
Yeah,
right?
comic books are cheaper. I'm sorry. No, comic books are a great idea. You take it with you, you can read it, you can show it to a friend, you can listen to a little tune on it, you can admire his artwork and his story and the fact that my name is all over it.
The cool thing is usually our concert is filled with fans, but this comic book, we have a lot of enemies. That's wonderful. We have something to fight with.
Well, John, can you talk a little bit about the other characters in the book? The villains and the other heroes?
Yeah, so there's the main character, obviously, is Yoshiki, and he has this power with him that you'll see when you start kind of digging into the book. He becomes the Blood Red Dragon. And there's this opposite kind of energy to the energy that Yoshiki possesses that is controlled by these guys from this place called Oblivion. And they're trying to basically overthrow humanity and wipe out all of reality. They're not good people. You can get to the depths of it once you kind of get the books in your hands. But they're really, the main threat is the power Yoshiki gets is through his music. It's through creative expression, and he's able to tap into this power that no one else is able to touch. And the Oblivion people don't want him to have that power, they want to control it, so that's where they come to a head.
He said he just puts a bunch of cool shit in.
Stan, do you find there's a difference between Japanese comic book fans and American comic book fans?
I heard comic book fans. The lucky thing is, in Japan, they tell stories differently. I have to admit that. It's not quite the same as the way we tell a story in style, but the Japanese, like everybody else in the world, they love a good, exciting story. They love a hero they can care about and relate to. And they love a book that's different and unique and stories that they haven't read a million times before. And The Blood Red Dragon, starring my friend Yoshiki, The Blood Red Dragon is all of that. It's written beautifully. The artwork is sensational. And the guy who plays the lead, I mean, I thought he was just an ordinary guy, but you notice I am careful to say nothing to offend this guy, because if he turns into a blood red dragon, all of you better watch out. But you'll find out when you read the book.
John, how does Yoshiki's music influence the writing that you do on the book?
Well, it enhances the mood because we kind of play off of kind of the mood that he sets and the story he tells with his music. And so once you're reading the book, if you're a fan of Yoshiki's music, the things he's done with X-Japan and throughout his career, you'll kind of get the sense over the course of the 4 issues of the connection that music has to the story, the tone, some of the settings, and kind of just the overall nature of not only the struggle of his character coming to grips with what's going on, but also kind of the bigger themes throughout the book.
And obviously we have Tracy up here with us as well. What can you tell us about her character?
So Tracy, there's going to be a few twists and turns for Tracy. She is a character that kind of pops up in the Zero issue and gets introduced as an ally to Blood Red Dragon. Where her true allegiances lie over the course of the series may kind of go back and forth. So she's a friend right now. She might not be a friend at the end of it. She might. We'll find out.
Now, one of the really unique aspects of this book is the music chip that's in there. So I'm just curious how that idea came about. The music chip that's in the preview issue.
How does it work?
No, just how did that idea come about?
Yoshiki wanted to have some of his music in there, right? He wanted to give a different experience to the fans. So again, we've all seen comic books. You guys have all bought comic books, I'm sure. So he wanted to be able to integrate what it is that you guys know him for, which is his music, and put it in. Now, the hard part isn't doing a comic book and doing music. That's very easy for him. Comic books sort of easy for us. How do you put the two together? Getting that sound chip in there. Now, again, if all of you guys have ever gone out to Hallmark, you know, you guys can open it up and you can get that little sound chip in there. It's doable. Nobody's really sort of tried to, you know, exploit that on a comic book level. And on top of it, too, to do original music, right? I mean, all the ones we buy at Hallmark are all the sort of the old 70s, 80s tunes that we all sort of grew up with. And just to show you how much he's sort of a perfectionist, which can sometimes be an issue, is that we had it all done. He gave us the music. We liked it. We made the chip. We got it inserted. They built all of it at the printer. And then we get a phone call from him and he goes, I think I want to do another bit. And I go, whoa, 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 whoa. If we're going to have music in that book at San Diego, you got to fall in love with what you just gave me the first go around. Because to my ear, I thought it was good. But again, I also look at my own drawings, and the moment I let go of them, I want to redo them. So I know I've directed music videos and been around a lot of music people. They're just as neurotic as comic book artists, and that we never are satisfied with any of our work. So I still, you were happy with it for a while, and then you let go, and you went, oh, I want it back, right?
Thank you. So, is it a compliment? Well, yeah, so when I first thought about this music, I was kind of thinking about the Close Encounter of the Third Kind, that kind of vibe. But I wanted to make it even spookier, then little bit of like Asian taste, dragon taste, but also some gothic taste. Then I only have like 30 seconds to describe, this music. So I thought that the first version was pretty good too, but didn't have, for some reason there's no dragon in that music. So I called Todd and then I said, I need to change, can we still make it? Then we somehow made it.
Are there plans to develop more original music for the comic book itself?
Are there what?
Plans to develop more original music for the comic book?
I don't know, that's your question. Are you going to do more music for it?
Why not?
See, I'm different than they are. I'm not that particular. When I write something, whatever I write, I say, wow, that's good. And then I go on to the next story. I got to tell you one thing, and I just thought of this now. You don't know what it feels like to be sitting next to this man. It's like sitting next to the Beatles and the Rolling Stones all wrapped up in one. And I'm sitting here like we're buddies and we're equals. This is a guy who's one of the great musicians of our time. And it is such a thrill and an honor to be with him and to be part of this book he's doing, and of course to be part of the video thing we're doing for and to be part of this guy doing it, and when I get to know him better, it'll be him too, and this is just great. You're very lucky that he's here.
With all of that, let me just sort of do a tip of the hat to Carlos Oriana, who's the artist on the book. Without the visuals, and the idea is just a novel at that point. So, I mean, comic books are I've always said 51% story, 51% visual, 49% story, because you you look at the cover and decide whether you're going to buy the book.
Absolutely.
So Carlo, who's backstage there, is amongst us. He's doing good. And just to give all of you guys hope, I first came across Carlo a while back on Twitter. And again, the artist that's working on Spawn right now, I found him on Twitter. He lives in Poland. So the great thing, you know, with the new generation and our moms and dads getting old, going, all this social networking is bad and it's evil and it's sort of destroying society. I disagree. It allows me to get in contact with people that I would never have had an opportunity. 5 years ago, there was no way somebody in Poland would be working on my book because I wouldn't even know that they could draw. And so Carlo, every now and then I'll put on my Twitter, if you think you're an artist or you're a writer, send me a link. And
I'm going to send them.
Anyways, you guys if anybody's got aspirations of being a musician, a writer, an artist, toy maker, just keep sending it in as many opportunities as you can. Someday you might get a break.
We're going to take some fan questions.
First off, I just want to say Todd and Stan, you guys are my heroes, and I'm really honored to be here. And I wanted to ask you both personally, like, since you're working with Yoshiki, Yoshiki.
Gazutai.
I know, sorry, I didn't watch that. Yeah, sorry.
Some people in Japan call me Yoshiki, but in America people call me Yoshiki. Yeah, I love. Well, both of the name are me, so I love both.
All of a sudden, he's got a talking jag. I never heard you talk so much at one time.
It's very contagious.
My question, I was going to ask, since he's a big musician and you're doing this collaboration, Todd and Stan, like, have you ever thought about being like a musician, or were you had dreams about like back in the day or whatever?
You know, let me just give you the sum total of my music talent is close to nil. And my wife is a pianist. She never did it professionally, but she sort of entertains us 3-4 times a week playing in the living room. And she's taught all of her children to be musical, which I think everybody should have. But it gets her goat when she sees that Grammy. Because she goes, it's her music talent, right? And she goes, you know, every time she looks at it, she goes, you know nothing, Todd. You're like a dumbass. And you can't even read music, and you got a Grammy Award? But again, I found that there's usually a back door to everything, right? So if you're not going to play for the Yankees and own them, you should get a ring if they win the championship, right? So I figured out how to get to places without having not as much skill as I should have. But anyway, and let me
you can't judge people by what they get awards for. You mentioned my star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. I've never starred in a movie. I'm on the same street as Paul Newman. My star is a couple of stars for Paul Newman. Now, if that isn't ridiculous, I don't know what is. So you can't tell. You get awards, nobody knows what they're for. Sometimes an award committee figures, we got to give it to someone, let's see who's left, they find a name, they do it. Nobody really cares.
And let me just say, go back to the comic book. There are a lot of projects that are done that are called, quote-unquote, vanity projects, in which a celebrity will lend their name, but really have very minimal involvement into it. Almost like sort of advertising for something. But I have to tell you, I mean, it was really the biggest surprise for me in how directly involved you are with, I mean, whether I agree with all the comments and decisions, it's okay, because you're the guy that we have to keep happy. But he gives quick responses on everything. He's looking at everything, and there isn't very much that he's not catching and going, can you make that bigger, taller? How about if the hair's a little, I mean, some of it, like I said, we have to push back. We go, this is how comic books work. But if anybody thinks that this thing was put together without his input, Yoshiki's input, I'm telling you guys, to the point that my ear sort of starts to bleed sometimes because he's got so many comments that we come in there. So I like that. I like it when the guy who's actually the boss is actually sort of engaged in the project. And Yoshiki, more than almost anything I've done before, is really sort of on top of it. So I'd like to sort of thank you for that.
Now I'm upset. He never calls me. How come he never calls me?
We go to dinner a lot.
Because you can't hear. So.